A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit against Jefferson County Schools. The lawsuit, brought up by 4 families, argue that they have the right to raise their children in line with their religious beliefs and that Jeffco's policy would force their students to share bedrooms and bathrooms with trans students on field trips. The district argued families could request alternative accommodations for their students for any reason, including their religious beliefs. A federal judge ruled that parents do have that right, but, quote, they have no right to dictate Jeffco's efforts to ensure transgender students are part of an education environment where all students feel safe and ready to learn. Joining us this morning to discuss this lawsuit is our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning, Jordan.
All right, let's start with that lawsuit that was filed last year. This was filed on behalf of at least 2 different children. Tell us about that lawsuit.
Yeah, the facts, this is a really difficult case in terms of the facts and really discerning the law that came out of it. But really the 2 issues were that there was an overnight trip to Washington, D.C., and there was a young girl, and they had selected their rooms, and they said that the girls would be on one floor and the boys would be on another. But the Jeffco policy defines girls and boys not by biological sex, but by gender identity, which the parents didn't know. And so it was on that first night, and the 4 girls were in a room together, and it was one of the transgender girls mentioned to the other girl that they were going to be sharing a bed, that, hey, I was born a boy. And the girl said the biological girl was uncomfortable, and they ultimately made accommodations, but the parents were, I think, understandably upset about that. And so they are one of the plaintiffs in this lawsuit challenging Jeffco's policy. Now, the second situation was related to outdoor lab, where there were a group of 11-year-old boys. They had the boys' dorms together, and there was one of the chaperones, or one of the 18-year-olds, was a transgender boy who had previously, according to the complaint, just 4 days before, identified still as a young lady. And so that person, that transgender boy who was watching them, was overseeing the showers, because they had a limited time in the showers, not behind the curtain. And so she was sort of in this intimate setting with the boys. She didn't see anybody naked or anything like that, but she was assigned to the boys' dorm, and the parents didn't know about that. And so I think really what's at the heart of these lawsuits is the parents not having the knowledge. And then it was after the fact that they reviewed the policy, and it was kind of deep in a number of pages where they realized that the policy was not related to biological sex, but on gender identity.
Again, this lawsuit was filed back in 2023, so before some of the changes that we've seen in recent months, but it actually was recently just dismissed. Why was that lawsuit dismissed?
Right, so just last week, the federal judge dismissed it on a number of grounds. So they filed a motion to dismiss, a 12B1 and a 12B6 motion, and the judge granted that, saying that some of the parents didn't have standing because they had no injury in fact. And this was all speculative, saying, hey, in the future, my kids will be going to outdoor lab, will be going to these overnight trips, and we don't want them to face this situation. And the judge said, well, you don't have standing. With respect to the other parents, they said, you have the right to raise your child with the morals and values that you want, but you can't dictate school curriculum. And so because the Jeffco policy was what it is, they said, you can't override that. So, and the judge also dismissed the First Amendment religion claim, saying that this isn't forcing religion on you or prohibiting you from practicing your religion. So that case was completely dismissed. So it never actually got to trial. It was dismissed on the motion.
So what does that mean for students going forward there in Jefferson County?
Right, so that really means that as long as this policy is in place, and the policy really is designed, I think, to protect these transgender students and to make them feel welcome and safe and to not isolate them. And so allowing them, they said they will not be forced to be in a situation against their gender identity. Now, this only comes up really in these overnight type situations, and the court said, well, you don't have to participate. For the parents that filed this lawsuit or aren't comfortable with the policy, they said you don't have to participate in these extracurricular activities. So really, I think you're now going to see a battle at the school board level in terms of deciding the curriculum, because as long as the curriculum is as it is, the parents won't have much say.
And we are out of time, but real fast, just yes or no, do you plan to see these parents appeal?
I would be surprised if they didn't appeal. Yes, I believe there will be an appeal.
All right, Whitney, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.